Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an instructive game to share with you from the 2025 London Chess Classic. On the white end, Luke McShane playing against Alireza Firouzja. Alright, this was a round 2 game from the elite section. We have an open Sicilian, Najdorf, whole host of 6th moves here for white. Plays in this one bishop e2. e5, knight b3, bishop e6, taking good care of this d5 weakness, f4, and from here, bishop e7 is played. You'll want to stay clear of making early commitment with the queen knight in this position. For instance, knight b to d7. After f5, you would have no better than to exchange your good bishop for a not so well positioned minor. So, black maintains flexibility with this piece. Bishop only has a single option. Bishop e7 it is. g4. And from here, black plays h6, holding up the g5 idea. Not the only approach you can take. It says you can remove this middle pawn of the trio, capture on f4, with the idea to operate on this vacant e5 square. Now, a downside in playing in this way, you no longer have control over d4. That not so well positioned minor can now quickly get back into the ball game. Firouzja's approach is to hang on to his strong point, e5. So he goes with h6. And white's response is f5. Now, if g5 is played, this is no good, because black can take on g5 and then pinpoint g5. It's hit now for a third time. Only one defender, and there's no hanging on to it. h4 is not working. You can take. There's a pin on the h file. Also, a disruptive move or what seems to be a disruptive move, g6, breaking up kingside structure, is met with bishop h4, and the white king is going to run for his life. Black is winning there. Okay, my point, playing g5 is faulty. We have here f5. Pop quiz, how would you respond? Pause the video if you'd like. Okay, in the game, black reroutes the bishop, watches over d5 from another angle. This is not the only way you can play it. You can exchange your good bishop for this knight in this position. Now that may seem strange, because just moments ago I drew attention to not declaring the queen knight too soon to d7, so that in the event of f5 you wouldn't be forced into this very capture. How are things different here? Well, with the queen knight uncommitted, you can go for this capture. And after white recaptures following the general rule, taking towards the center, half open file for the rook, no a pawn around means there is no easy control over b4. And with the queen knight uncommitted, there is a quick path into this excellent outpost. And from here, you fight for that d5 square. Another way to view it, you coordinate quite naturally with this rook on this half open file. There's already a pin in the position. Don't move too soon, knight. c2 will collapse. Now, I took this position out a little further. It's calling for castles here. The move I was a little concerned about was rook a4, challenging the knight. If you play in this way, you're pretty much lost. d5 break is already there. Knight defended. Capture, b5, rook kicked back, and e4. This position is now cracked wide open. And which of the kings will feel more comfortable in this environment? Black's. Nice home here for the black king. Question mark for that white king. This is already a win for black. Nearby, now that the bishop is cut off from defending d5, knight f takes d5, bishop h4 check in the air. Big trouble here for white. Okay, short story. You do have the option to capture on b3 and operate on b4. Black's approach reroutes the bishop, expands on the queen side, b4, held up, knight b to d7, queen e2. Another pop quiz. What is your move? Pause the video if you'd like. Okay, in the game, knight b6 is played. In response, white now has knight a5. That's the move we see in the game. Queen no longer controls that square. At the top, it says play a5. This knight can now forget about hopping to that square. The downside is that this pawn drops. Let me show you where the compensation lies. Being down the pawn here, it says drive the knight back. No knight on c3. Controlling d5, you can get that break in. And it says to part ways with this light square bishop. This is as far as you really need to take it. You can, at this stage, point to, hey, I have the bishop pair in this open environment. I did take it out a bit further. Rook under fire here. I'm glad I did. There is a flashy move right around the corner here for black with queen b6. How do you not sort of fall in love with these moves? This cross pin on the f2 bishop. All right. Gets a little more fancy, inserting a check on pinning the bishop to the rook. And then it says revisit that b6 square with this double attack. What a line. Calling for rook g3, queen captures b2 here. Don't castle to defend, you will be in trouble. Anyhow, my point, a5 is a top move, and there certainly will be compensation there for black. No a5 in the game. Knight b6. The response is knight a5. If white castles here, white may lose the opportunity to hop into a5. Knight a4 is there. Another special line nearby that I stumbled upon. After knight a5, you are fighting for that d5 square, removing a defender, or at least trying to. If the knight hops in, you can take with either piece. This is the one I examined, taking with the bishop. And now it says look forward to this maneuver, look forward to the c5 square. And there's a sort of positional threat now nearby for black with bishop g5, exchanging bad for good bishop. You get that exchange in there. There will be a black knight that will be a pest for pretty much the rest of the game, operating on c5. It says necessary here, h4. Another wicked line right here. The point behind h4, well, if black bites, it says to play in this way, there's one less obstacle between this queen and king. And now, this not so well positioned knight has the option to pivot on d4, eyeing that very weakened c6 square. And if you take the knight, there is bishop g5, discovered check, the queen falls next. There are some wild lines out of this Sicilian Najdorf, no doubt. Okay, not the line we see. No castles with knight a4. White hops right to a5. Rook c8. From here, white castles. A nice option here for white. This is one of the top moves. Another one is to exchange a couple sets of minor pieces. I've found this line attractive for white. At this point, it now wants to justify that earlier g4 move. It says insert h4, and nearby, there is that g5 idea. It doesn't like queenside castles here with the queen on b6. Due to b4, black queen will be very active on b4. It says insert h4 in this position. b4 no longer is good with the rook still on the a file. After the recapture on b4, there's rook captures a6. It's looking at rook c4 in this position, and only now castles. After castles b4, b4 is a blunder, rook falls. I was a little curious about g5 without castles. That is no good. If you play g5 here after the captures, the rook exchange, there is queen g1 check, and the g5 pawn falls. This knight does not have to budge. There remains a fight over that d5 square. It calls for castles here with an exchange sacrifice to follow. Knight drifting towards the queenside. Okay, interesting game ahead, I imagine. How it's playing out in this one, we don't see these minor pieces exchanged. It's queenside castles, bishop preserved, bishop d2. Now, I should say not only bishop preserved, but this is now a very serious sacrifice. So with bishop d2, the move in the game, white is covering the knight, and I imagine in some lines covering the knight on a5. If you play h4, you are lost. This sacrifice is that strong. Capture on c3 followed by knight a4. This is pretty much as far as you need to take it. You're on c3 and the knight. c3 landing there with the fork. So white must address this idea, and does. Bishop d2, battery formed. From here, white plays king b1, gets out of any pins on the c-file. A top move is to back the bishop off, open the rook's eyes to d5, try and hold up the d5 advance. Okay, in this one we see king b1. Pop quiz, how would you respond here? Pause the video if you'd like. Okay, in the game we see the thematic d5 break. A move that may tempt many here is knight a4, trying to get at c2, targeting the knight as well. This move is faulty. Let me show you why. White can take on a4. Your best bet at this point, it says, to immediately recapture with bishop b4 to follow. Very good piece there, guarding the knight, targeting a base point, covering c2. Here's the thing. If black tries to flick in queen captures c2 check and then collect the knight, there's a problem. White is the better developed side here in this open position. Black is up a pawn, but there's a disconnect here. And what do you do about this? You want a castle? That's the one I tested out. Bishop b4. Ouch. This queen is short on squares. What are you doing about b3 next? Queen is cooked. Okay, my point. Knight a4, tempting. Firouzja here, not tempted by that line. Gets on with this central break. d5. E takes d5. Knight f takes d5. Rook h to e1. Castles. Pop quiz. How would you continue here? Pause the video if you'd like. Okay, white blunders here. Bit of a surprising blunder. Ends up capturing on e5 and will soon be playing down a piece. This was considered the best line. To take on d5 with the bishop, and then capture on e5 with the queen. Knight takes knight. If queen takes knight, there's queen captures h2. Queen is hit, position wide open, bishop pair thriving there, covering a lot of ground, no fear of any. Rook h1, got that one covered as well. In these open environments, bishop pair strong, also the knight not really living the dream. Completely boxed out of the game with this cornered bishop. Not a bad thing for a bishop to be cornered. It says top here, recapture with the bishop, go for a queen exchange, And even though black is down a pawn, it prefers black here. Evaluation reading about minus 0.6. Okay, got some targets in these queenside pawns. Light square bishop may round them up at some point. Okay, prefers black in this queenless ending. How it is played here, white ends up blundering a piece. After castles, we see queen takes pawn, queen takes queen, rook takes queen. There's a problem here for this bishop, unprotected, and it can be exploited. Knight takes knight check, bishop takes knight, bishop takes bishop. You're on the rook here. Rook takes bishop, bishop takes rook is there. Rook d3, and at this point you can save the bishop and put pressure on something of greater value. Bishop f6 is there. Rook captures, bishop follows. One more pop quiz. What's your move here? Pause the video if you'd like. Okay, there's more than one winning approach. You can play bishop captures rook straight away. This is not the move in the game. If you play in this way, we're looking at a pawn and bishop versus rook imbalance. Better than that is a pawn versus bishop imbalance. So let's see what that looks like. How it plays out in this game is with rook captures bishop, removing the defender of the rook, and only now capturing on e5. And here we are. Completely winning for black. I imagine these next handful of moves, really the rest of the moves of this game, are played on out of momentum. After blundering a piece like that, rook c6, rook b8, h-pawn, saved, knight c4, very direct. Knight hit, b2 hit for a second time. Follow-up is rook captures a. If knight captures knight, the b file opens up. Black will be getting a pawn very soon. c3 can take, got a pin there. b3, b4, we have the captures. How it's playing out here after knight c4, rook takes a, bishop takes pawn, and from here knight c6. If knight takes knight, yes, you remove a defender of the bishop, but a new one shows up. So we have here knight c6, rook e8, a4, bishop c3. Nearby, there are mating nets with this bishop on c3. King a2, trying to slip away. Black says, not so fast. Look at the ground. The minor pieces and pawn are covering, have all of these squares under control. There are only two that remain for the white king, and they too will be removed soon enough. A takes B, and after move 33, rook e1, white resigns. There's nothing holding up this eventual rook a1 for mate. So an interesting game here out of this Sicilian Najdorf. Unfortunate blunder there by McShane, dropping a piece. Your thoughts with this one? Feel free as usual to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.